Hi Kules, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. I'm so sorry for dropping this video late, but hey, rather late than never, right? As we look at how Hansi Flick is actually trying to protect Lewandowski's age, which is a brilliant idea, seeing that we need to be able to press effective and still have one of the best strikers in the world, guys. As always, please do subscribe, and we actually have improved, guys, by a 2-point-something percentage. Keep on subscribing. Like I said, overwhelmingly majority is not subscribed to the channel. Thank you very much. In build-up, when Athletic Club looked to play up from the back, we saw again it's Ferran Torres and Lamine Yamal who was defending ahead of Lewandowski. And instead of having a 2-2-2, we saw a diamond from Barcelona. The reason why I think this happened was Flick wanted to have Rafinha and Pedri wide in order to press from an angle in order to stop the ball from progressing to the center. This midfield diamond was a brilliant idea because when Bilbao decided to have a double pivot or somebody dropped, one of Pedri and Rafinha could actually follow their man, and then Bernal would just circulate in behind to pick up any loose balls. Or we would see that Ferran Torres was somebody that could press from an angle, and Lamine Yamal would press his centre back a little bit later on to set up a pressing trigger or a pressing trap, where Rafinha would come from midfield while cutting the passing lane into that area. Or we could see it was Jules Koundé that would actually come up way top to press the fullback, and then Bernal would fill up as a temporary centre back in order for Pau Cubarsí to shift over. That is why we saw Nico Williams versus Pau Cubarsí many a times. Here we clearly see that Robert Lewandowski is following his man wide into the half space, and when the other player decided to drop, Rafinha was on his head following everywhere he was trying to fall into place. And look at how Balde is trying to go to the fullback, and Bernal is already filling in his space in order for the backline not to be stretched, right? And here we see that Ferran Torres is way forward compared to Lamine Yamal, because Lamine Yamal was pressing later on, or he would just simply keep the fullback in check. Something else that was interesting was how Flick utilized the central players to protect the wide areas, because Ferran and Lamine would be on the centre backs, and if the goalkeeper got involved, it was Robert Lewandowski who would come from midfield in order to put pressure on him. If by any means we saw that they were trying to find their central defensive midfielder, it wasn't Rafinha who would come on to press this player, nor would it be Pedri to actually go and press forward. It was actually Marc Bernal that came from his position in order to get up and put pressure on this player. And I said that Flick wanted to have Rafinha and Pedri wide because they wanted them to protect or press the fullbacks. In this frame right here, we can clearly see that if Ferran and Yamal was wide, this is actually a player now, but it was Robert Lewandowski who would come forward looking to press that player over there. And you can see here Bernal doing the same. When Ferran was not doing his job as always, Bernal would actually come out with Pedri and Rafinha remaining wide in order to press. Bilbao didn't press Barcelona too high. They allowed us to come through the first phase of build-up and defended in a 4-4-2. And Ter Stegen did get involved a lot, actually coming into Inigo's space, pushing him out wide with Balde going forward, and therefore you would see Ferran Torres operating in the half space. And that was actually very important for Barcelona in the first half. In the early stages, I was surprised to see that Pedri was actually operating and functioning in a double pivot along with Marc Bernal. This did change later on in the half, but yeah. And you can also see here now Ter Stegen is on Inigo's position, and Inigo is going forward with Balde overlapping when Ferran Torres was actually pulling that fullback narrow. We saw Pedri drop into the same areas we saw that Marcus Sauer normally do, and as we know by now, that allowed Balde to go forward and Ferran Torres operating in the half space. But Bernal also came over, and that actually dragged the whole of Bilbao over to one side. But I want you to check out the positioning here, because I mentioned this in a previous video that I think that Flick wants to have Rafinha and Lamine Yamal in these areas and closer to the goal, whereas somebody would press Bernal that would totally free up Rafinha, and central progression is actually encouraged here by Flick. And with the positioning of Jules Koundé in the half space right here, it draws out Nico Williams in order to leave Lamine Yamal totally alone with his defender in a one-on-one situation. Here we see that Pedri is orchestrating things from deep, right, in order to get on the ball more. And also look how Bilbao is dragged across the pitch to the left-hand side. And you can see here Rafinha waiting in that half space. And look at the space Lamine Yamal is in ultimately. So that switch from Inigo can be really devastating for Barcelona. And look at the amount of space that we were able to generate in this circle. Like the whole of the circle is like fairly open for Barcelona. And they can find Rafinha with a pass. Marc Bernal later on did start to drop in between the centre backs, and that was to have Inigo wide, having Pedri going back to the midfield, because Flick wanted Pedri to receive the ball in these areas and actually control the midfield and also be a lot closer to Robert Lewandowski and Rafinha. But one thing we also saw is that when the ball actually was circulating over to the left side, to make it easier for Ferran Torres, you would see that Pedri and Lewandowski was running ahead of him, opening up that half space. And we saw in the second goal for Barca how important Pedri was for those runs that he made just in behind that defense. And Ferran Torres coming so narrow also drew Bilbao narrow, allowing Balde to go into these areas to get on the ball. So Barcelona would find Pedri in these areas with Ferran Torres, and you would see that drew the whole of Bilbao narrow, and Lamine kept on being a danger in these areas, which was his first goal was actually like that. Inigo playing this wide in that area that we normally see Casado dropping is really a brilliant idea. And look at how Pedri went back to the midfield, right? And you can now see how Pedri and Lewandowski is running ahead of Ferran Torres, ultimately opening up their half space for Barcelona. So this is brilliant. So we don't need a one-on-one winger, right? Look at how Rafinha is also running ahead, even pulling the fullback extremely narrow. And look at the amount of space that Lamine Yamal will ultimately have on that wing. And you can see here both Rafinha and Lamine Yamal is in these areas. And I told you guys, I think Flick wants these guys to receive the ball a lot closer rather than on the wings. Most of what came from the right-hand side for Barcelona was a result of the left, except for Pau Cubarsí and his penetrative passes, right? Valverde actually complained about this little fella. But you can also see, like I said, when we drew them to one side, Koundé would actually draw Nico Williams out, ultimately leaving Lamine Yamal in a one-on-one situation. And if this kid gets better throughout the season, he's going to be a serious problem, right? And we also saw that Rafinha and Lamine did swap positions many times in order to confuse the opposition also a little bit. But something else that I noticed was how Robert Lewandowski would particularly drop towards the right-hand side, drawing the defender, and then you would see that Rafinha was making these runs just in behind because that fullback couldn't come out, right? And like I said, Rafinha and Lamine Yamal in these half spaces is going to be dangerous for Barcelona. Having Koundé go up with Lamine Yamal actually forced Nico Williams into defending, and I also think that this is how Flick is going to protect his wings, to force the dangerous players to also defend. And look at how Nico Williams has to defend Koundé at all times, which is ultimately leaving Lamine Yamal in these one-on-one situations. So this is how tactics work, guys. You can see how he's drawing him narrow in order to allow Lamine Yamal in these areas, and Lamine is going to get a lot of service this season, guys, with Koundé, and this is a partnership developing. Look at how Robert Lewandowski is ultimately dropping, and now how Rafinha is making that run towards that big hole that you can see right there. And you will also see like Nico had to defend at all times because Koundé was pulling him out, and Barcelona's verticality under Flick is really going to benefit from this with Koundé's positioning, right? Nico Williams later on just decided not to press Koundé anymore because he was so tired. And yeah, this is how you break down the opposition, like mentally, right? And look at how Yamal is swapped with Rafinha into the half space actually. But in closing, I think really the verticality is something crazy for Barcelona, and the way we play a lot faster than we did under Xavi. And with Pedri and I think with Frenkie de Jong, we're going to have a lot more control over games, while we can really like penetrate these teams in order to get the win. But like I said, we need to seriously put some respect on Rafinha's name, because this guy is super talented, he's super hardworking, he has an incredible engine. So we need to seriously apologize. And if you ever had anything against this man, please apologize. Please apologize in the comment section. By the way, if you watch up until this point, write Rafinha has to stay at Barcelona down in the comment section, right? As always, do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot. The second half of this game will drop tomorrow. Thank you.